Okay, good morning. We have a quorum. It's after 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. First up is approve the minutes of the April 5th meeting that Kayla handed out.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes,
Second.
April 15th.
Motion and second. Any other comments? Not? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Kayla.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. So then we just have the September meeting, I think, to go through. That one was not approved.
I can't find those. Do you have the handwritten notes or something? Because I don't have the typed up ones. And I think that was before we have the recordings on YouTube.
September 24th?
Yeah.
September 17th. Oh, 24th.
Jess has my book too. She wants me to go back through it because she doesn't like the order I put it in.
I heard.
Oh my goodness.
I do not have the September meeting minutes.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
I get 10:15 and then I have 8:20.
The ghost meeting.
Was there a meeting in
Okay.
September?
Yeah,
I have August and
Yeah, that's what I have.
October, but I'm missing September,
so maybe it didn't happen?
maybe we didn't.
Maybe we didn't have it. Was that the meeting?
I usually put a canceled thing in the book if it was
Yeah.
canceled, so I'll go back and look.
Okay.
I'll
We'll
check-
just
I'll check
say
the
it's
book.
canceled. No matter if you guys were here or
Okay.
not, because I know
I
I
have,
was.
I have
All right.
Wait, that's it.
All right, so we
Did
just have.
someone take notes last meeting?
I don't see
I
it.
did.
Okay. If you send them to me, I could just type them up.
Okay,
Sure. Yep.
that'd be good. All right.
Yeah, I don't see a September in mine.
Let's see, the, update on our priority bylaws on the large venues. We were waiting to see what happened with specifically the Young Men's Club at the last party that they had. How did that go? Was that pretty quiet?
It was a rain
The
day.
the
It was
weather.
rain, yeah.
The weather kind of tamped it,
Okay,
but the event that was there
was
were
big.
really, yeah, it was big, but there were really no issues other than what we would expect with a bunch of college kids consuming alcohol.
okay.
No, they don't.
We could hear it at our house.
I mean, that to me, that's the biggest concern is the noise, because we can't do a whole heck of a lot about that the day it's happening. All the other stuff, we have police and ambulance service there. So that, the idiocy can be dealt with, but the noise is the huge concern from my perspective.
Right.
And we haven't figured out a way to.
Yeah, we're not alone in this. Other towns are wrestling with the same thing to define noise in a, if you would, a measurable quantity. And I don't, you read in the newspaper, there's other towns around us that are defining noise this way, that way. Some are using real vague terms, which is useless.
Right.
And when you try to define it with a decibel rating,
It's hard.
how do you, that is, you could specify a certain meter, a certain distance, and a certain height above the ground. The problem is, those meters sometimes disappear because different decibel meters may give you different readings. They're close, but any idea?
Did we talk about length of time? Because that might even out some of the discrepancies between different meters. Like if you were measuring over, say, the course of an hour, ambient noise or other noise that might be feeding into the meters and giving you unequal readings, that might even out a little bit. So maybe if it's a certain decibel level over a certain amount of time, 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
The real problem with noise is it changes based on the distance from
Right.
where it's coming from.
In the wind.
And that's the major issue.
Right, wind and landscape.
And the frequency. You can get
Mm-hmm.
you can get low frequency noise
that
Yeah,
goes
let's
all the way
say-
up to his house.
Low frequency noise, let's say that's 80 decibels, and, okay, normal speaking, just for everybody's reference, normal speaking is around 70 decibels, give or take a couple. 80 decibels is loud, but it's 85 or 84 decibels is the OSHA limit for noise. But a lot of it also is the frequency. If you got a high-pitched noise at 80 decibels and a low-pitched noise at 80 decibels, depending on the gender, and this is also true, it can be extremely annoying or it doesn't bother you. Like a female voice has a higher frequency typically than a male voice. And sometimes, like, that's like when your wife yells at you, it's like, oh my God. And I'm not trying to be a wise guy here. When I went for my hearing test, that's what the audiologist told you, that,
Yep.
that your hearing loss is more pronounced here than here. And that's why you probably don't hear your wife as well as you do a male voice.
That's exactly right.
You know, so I'm telling you scientific facts, except for the fact about the wife hollering at you. But, you know, I mean, it's anybody who's ever had to deal with noise, especially like from the building department and zoning, it's a difficult thing to try to define. I mean, somebody's noise, if how do I say this? If you tell somebody to be quiet because they're too loud, a lot of people, okay, you know, they'll quiet down. But if you get into a point where they're a little bit not so cooperating, and you have to use some, I don't want to say force, but some enforcement, it can get very difficult if it ever gets to court, because it's like, holy smokes, you know, how do you? It's definition, it's measurement, it's all kinds of, everybody has a different perspective on it.
There are some standards though. I mean, we have a standard under fire regulation that when we evaluate fire alarms, and that's why we probably can't hear, because we've tested so many of them, but,
Huh?
yeah, exactly. But there's the standard, so it's basically, when you set up a fire alarm in a commercial property, we actually have to check bathroom areas or places where people are taking showers, because normally there isn't a horn strobe in that space, it's just the strobe. And normally they go by what's going on outside of that area. So if we take our meter in there, we'll first meter what the ambient sound is. And then we go in there, set the fire alarm off, and if we're not 15 dBA above that mean, then they have to add something somewhere, or turn something up, or turn something down. There are horn strobes that are they're so loud, you probably heard some of them, where it actually, when we go in at night at 2 in the morning, you actually become disoriented, because it totally messes with your head. So we actually have to have them adjust those sounds down too. I mean, the goal is to get everybody out of the building, but sometimes it's excessive. So.
The big problem, I mean, your alarms has a specific frequency range. The issue with concerts is that range is immense. And when you get into those really low frequencies, when they go boom, boom, and then they set these things up with that, the distance that travels from Young Men's Club is all the way up
Goes all the
to
way to my
Randy's
too.
house.
It goes to our house too.
The high frequencies, again, are the same problem. He's not going to hear it as much as I am, since I'm only a block away, whereby the low is going to be shaking my house. The high is just so irritating that you have to put earmuffs on. That's the problem. And how do you define that range?
I think we're just gonna have to research it. There's gotta be a standard out there for concert venues and stuff. There's gotta be somebody that has done an evaluation on those types
You would
of
think,
concert
I
venues.
can't disagree with that, but I mean, trying to, well,
I mean, looking at, I'm just gonna give you an example, Penn State. Penn State, when they have their 110,000 people in there, they actually had to evaluate it, because like you said, it
Yes.
registers on the Richter scale. So I'm sure that there's some way of evaluating that, or finding a study that would be reasonable for.
So if it
for that.
measures on a Richter scale, bad, that's all we should just.
No, it's just bad for the people that are trying to do like $1 million experiments, and they have to put the building on shock absorbers.
That's right, which
So,
it is
yes.
up there.
So what do you do with barking dogs and things like that? Is that just You call and ask them to quiet it down?
That's over over a time period, I think, right?
Barking dogs, we evaluate those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
If they're repeat complaints, and then over a period of time, time of day, frequency,
Okay.
there's a lot
So-
that
so-
kinda goes into
Okay,
it.
but I mean, can a standard like that be applied to off-site noise from a venue, you know, that, you know, is disturbing people, you know, that they can't use and enjoy their own property,
Mhm.
get alone in their house, if, you know, if their house is shaking. I mean, it just seems like there's an unfair standard being held here.
Yeah,
That you have people who are, I mean, we've sat in our backyard when they've had things, and we've just gone inside because we can't sit out there because of the noise. And then part of the concert's over, or, you know, there's certain things in the concert that do travel to us, others it's very muted in the background. But, you know, I mean, we're so far away, I can't imagine what it's like being across the street from it. You know?
So, I mean, I do like the idea of having a standard. I mean, if you have a decibel standard from a distance, great. The downfall to having to do decibels is that, at least in the policing world, if you have a piece of equipment that you use, you have to be trained on it, and and you have to be certified to operate it, and it has to be calibrated at a
All the
periodic time.
yeah.
So for us, when it comes to enforcement of the noise bylaw, we use reasonableness.
Right.
And I think for us, the reasonableness standard allows for your tolerance to know. This whole room, if we went and stood in your backyard, we might all feel differently about what the noise level is, based on our tolerances, based on anything, based on our life experiences.
And I know that you guys at police have definitely done more in getting the noise taken care of when there's multiple complaints. When you're starting to get 20, 30 people calling in, you know that there's an issue and something's gotta be done.
I would say that 99% of the noise violations that we deal with are at residences. And so if we get one call for, you know, the next door neighbors calling,
Yeah.
then we go over, we assess it, and if it's really, really loud,
Yeah, tell me.
because they might only have one next door neighbor,
Yeah,
right? So we go over, we assess it. If it's really loud, we tell them they gotta turn it down.
and most of the times, everybody cooperates.
Right.
I think the big issue was the concerts.
Do you guys get a lot of complaints about the Young Men's Club, about the noise?
So we have in the past, and I think that over time, a lot of the residents in the area understand, and we've tried to educate everybody about their a functioning business, that they have certain restrictions in place. There is a time limit that they have to cut everything off by 10 p.m., which is an hour earlier than what the noise bylaw. I mean, we have a 24-hour noise bylaw, but 11 p.m. is when.
Quiet.
Right, exactly. So they have to cut things off by 10 o'clock. But even, we've already had this year complaints about noise before the noise has even happened. Oh, we see that the Young Men's Club has an event coming up, we're concerned about the noise. So we figure out what the event is, and we find out what the issue is, and the last one we got, it ended up being an event that's inside the actual club. Great, done. The Asparagus Festival, we had complaints before the Asparagus Festival even started. All the stage is right here, it points right at our house, and we have all this noise. Okay, I mean, so we get a lot of complaints. Like I was saying about the residences are easy. You go, you assess. When you're going to a business or something that has been granted a special permit or special use, those are the ones that are a little bit more difficult for us to have to deal with, because they've been granted permission for this event and this scope that includes a concert or music or whatever the case may be. So,
And quite honestly, the Young Men's Club is doing a lot better than they used to do.
Right.
Based on who's running it now. Yeah, we have wedding parties down there, and you can hear it. It's for a few, probably half an hour, it gets a little loud, but it mutes down. So most of the neighbors are fine with that.
Yeah.
We've been tolerant of that for 40 years, so but it's the big concerts there that get out of control. And that's why I think we're all talking about, that we just gotta make sure that we can control those. And the police have done a remarkable job in the past. I mean, quite honestly, we haven't had anything since those big UMass parties. And again, I think the new board is at the Young Men's Club is worried about that. They want to be good neighbors. I've talked to them, and they said, yeah, just make sure that we know that it's out of control. And it hasn't been a real problem.
No,
lately.
with, under their new leadership,
Yes,
they've been willing to work with us.
yes.
We haven't had the issues.
No,
The select board hasn't heard any complaints in a year anyhow, so.
So Mitch, you said there's an existing noise bylaw,
Yes.
so what is spelled out in that bylaw, and what would be different about this new bylaw?
So the new bylaw that's current has a 24-hour aspect of it, and then it has an 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. aspect of it, where there are certain things that are restricted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Then there are certain things that are specifically stated in the bylaw that can't happen between 11 and 7. So, may I? Thank you.
Yeah, it says excessive, unnecessary, or
Yeah.
unusually loud, which either annoys, disturbs, injures, or dangers. But it's very open
That's right.
to interpretation. I'm happy to look into if there are any studies on concert venue noise, like ordinances or bylaws.
I just searched it quick and there's some
There are.
Yeah,
outdoor concert venues.
Yeah, I guess what I'm
use different
wondering
rules.
is, I'll see what studies are out there, but I'm wondering, to me it does seem like we do need to set, we're all agreeing that, meters might have differences and your officers would need to train potentially on that equipment, but it does seem like we need to set a standard that is measurable, so we would need a meter. I also think, much like the dog barking, there should be a time frame, like more, in excess of an hour, or 30 minutes, or whatever seems reasonable, but it needs to be something like clearly measurable instead of what we have right now, which is so open to interpretation. Like you were saying, two people might hear the same noise completely, like one of them might be bothered, the other might not notice it at all. So.
And not even have the noise and complain about it.
Right.
'Cause
Well,
it's happening.
and the point being that we might have to settle on something that isn't going to please every single person, because some people are going to be so perceptive to certain noises, certain frequencies, that it's going to bother them no matter what we set. So.
Well, fact is, you're not gonna satisfy everybody, but you get something in there that satisfies most
Your
people and is somehow measurable, or at least concrete, if you would, that there is a right and a wrong with very small gray area. That's probably the best we're gonna do. Nothing's gonna be 100% on something
never
like
will
this.
be.
No, and I think
You know.
people appreciate the fact that we're trying to do something about it. We're
Yeah.
not just pushing
You
it
know.
aside and saying,
Well,
deal
it'll
with
be,
it.
like I say, it won't be perfect, but it'll be at least probably a little bit better than what's out there, what we have today.
And
Okay.
to your point about the newspaper, Jimmy, Deerfield's dealing with exactly these same, they've got
Yeah.
problems with Treehouse Brewery and their concerts, and somebody wants to put a dog
Kennel
in, and they're having concerns about that, and it's the same thing, there's no noise yet, but let's complain. So, keep an eye on that and see where that goes, and because I have to leave soon, I wanna segue this noise thing into, roosters. They don't go away. I know we talked about farm animals on property, keep them on your property, but we didn't really address the noise. And I know that there's 3 situations that I'm aware of right now where people are not happy with their neighbors and their roosters. And I don't know what we do about that, because, it's a woman, she works 3 to 11, comes home, goes to bed, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever, and at 3 a.m. it's wake up time, and she's not happy about that for some reason, and I don't think that that's fair for somebody to have to deal with that. So how do we, you know, figure out how that gets worked out?
That kinda goes into the next one I'm gonna talk about, farm animals. Last time Mitch gave us Mass General Laws, chapter 266, section 118, talks about animals. And it's a little paragraph. Whoever having the charge or custody of sheep, goats, cattle, horses, swine, or fowl, willfully suffers, permits them to enter or remain in, on, or pass over any orchard, garden, mowing land, or other improved or enclosed land of another, after being forbidden to do so in writing or by notice posted thereon by the owner or occupied thereof, or by the authorized agent of such owner or occupant, shall be punished by a fine of not more than $10. Obviously, this is a very old
Yeah,
law.
yeah.
But that's the way the state law reads. I wouldn't word the town bylaw, but I would use, they define farm animals pretty well here. And so I was thinking of putting something in without the silliness, if you would, of the words they're using. And they says, after being forbidden in writing or by notice, we don't need to, I would just think we could somehow word it that they have to be kept on the person that's in charge or custody of the critters. Keep them on their property, either rented or otherwise, whatever it might be, and subject to the non-criminal disposition bylaw. And we could, what I was thinking of doing is referencing the definition of farm animals to this section. That sound right? Or just use the words in here?
Whatever, either
Whatever,
way.
okay.
Is that,
And-
that's, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but you're talking about the sound though, right?
Right, so
Yeah.
I'm
That's
gonna
on
wait for him to
Yeah.
get through this
And-
part, and then we.
And then included with this, somehow put in noise of animals. Now, if you're a farm, too bad. You're living next to a farm, you're gonna
Right.
deal with the noise.
Right.
But if you're dealing with non-farm animals, a non-farm where the animals make noise, then you could be subject to something. And that's where we're gonna find out what that is.
Can this just be handled the same way that you handled
Well,
dog barking
I was
complaints?
gonna say, in the noise bylaw, we have a section B, where it says shouting or whistling, yelling, shouting, hooting, hollering, etc., between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Is unreasonable, whatever. And then in the very next section, we talk about animal noise, but the animal noise section doesn't specify timing. It seems to me, I mean,
Could we just
obviously
add-
the noise
add
is a
crowing?
nuisance no matter what, but it seems particularly the 3 a.m. is the issue, and that falls outside of those hours. So why don't we just extend that
To
so it
crowing.
includes animals
Yeah,
too?
crowing.
Throwing in there?
Yeah, crowing.
Yeah, crowing. But it doesn't just have to
By
be.
person or other,
Yeah.
or other
What section
mammal.
is that?
That's-
So this is the noise bylaw
What section?
162.3, and then it's B is basically human noise, and then C is animal noise. So why don't we just extend that time frame on human noises to animals as well? Since it's the timing primarily, right? I
Right,
mean,
right,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, all the complaints are, I'm getting woken up at an
Yeah.
hour that is not acceptable, or it's 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever.
yeah.
So that makes sense, that
Okay.
we could do
But
that.
this will not apply to indoor cats that wake you up every
Well,
hour and a
that's
half
your,
at
that's
night.
your, that's
It's
your
your
own.
own.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
If there's a cat waking
So
up,
the,
same thing with
the
my dog,
four,
it might-
the 3, the 4, and the 5 o'clock meow, feed me some more stuff.
You
Yeah,
could
that's
find
fine.
your cat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's terrible enforcement. My wife says I still.
Well, we added to that.
The only issue that we have and that we've had in the past, when we go and talk to people about noise bylaw relative to farm animals, they point to right to farm.
Right, but the farm is defined, right? It's gonna be how many acres?
5.
Five.
Are you gonna leave?
I mean, we have
Not yet.
there's a cow across the street from us that I don't think is in a 5-acre farm, and one of the neighbors, one day we were talking to him, he says, this cow is driving us nuts, it's a lone cow and it's mooing all the time. I never heard it until he brought it up. Now I hear it all the time, and I don't hear it in the house, but every time I pull into my driveway, I get out of the car and I go, see, now I hear it, you know? And, but, these people are just suffering with it, and they seemingly can't get anybody to do anything, so I don't know if they've ever complained on an official level, probably not.
First I've heard of it.
Well,
Yeah.
if that cow is part of a bona fide farm,
Yeah, it's not.
and it's in a pasture land that's only 2 acres, you're in a very gray area.
Right. Yeah,
This
it's not.
is,
It's
this
how-
is, this is how it starts.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly how it starts.
See, we had no.
But most of the time, where the roosters and stuff like that, they're not associated with a farm, they're on private property.
Right.
That's a whole different thing. There is a, I mean, this it is by no means, like I said, it's not concrete. There is a gray area when you've got a farm animal that's part of a farm, but it's on a parcel that is smaller than 5 acres.
Right.
And
You know.
in keeping with this, I think we need to put what the right to farm definition is somewhere close to wherever this
Well, we could
bylaw's
simply, we
gonna
could
end.
simply reference the right to farm bylaw.
Because to Mitch's point, people think, this is a right to farm community, I can do what I want no matter what.
Which obviously isn't the case.
Right,
You know, the thing about this is that, you know, the one step that we haven't talked about in this committee has been when it comes to actual enforcement and the issuance of a citation. So, you know, you've got a rooster, your neighbor complains about it, I'm sick and tired of getting the phone calls, here's your citation, right? You go to court and you go, Mr. Clerk, I was issued a citation under the noise bylaw, I feel like this is a right to farm. And the clerk's gonna look at it and go, okay, right to farm, not responsible, have a nice day. 'Cause do you think the clerk wants to have to go into our bylaws and look up what's right to farm and what's this and?
Right to farm bylaw is a state law.
Mhm.
but to what Mitch is saying is, the clerk is not going to do the homework. He's gonna say, yeah, okay, you say it's a right to farm, done deal. I guess you'd have to be there to say, the right to farm is this,
We would,
Mr. Clerk?
yes, I mean, that's generally how it goes, is that we present the case to the clerk magistrate in a show cause hearing. We describe what the offenses are. That person, in this case you, would present your defense. And we would have an opportunity to respond to say, you know, you say right to farm, no it's not. Yes it is, no it's not, yes it is, and we.
And so here's a regulation.
Ultimately, the clerk ends up making a decision on the matter. So whatever it is that we decide has to be clear, it has to be succinct, and it has to be, I mean, it has to be crystal clear.
Can I ask, we're not trying to make a bylaw that would infringe on right to farm. I'm just trying to clarify, we're specifically talking about animals that are not on a farm.
That's correct.
Like, I have a rooster in my backyard, but I don't have a farm. Okay. Because right now, animal noises seems like it would cover the cow issue. It says the keeping of any animal or bird which by causing frequent or long continued noise shall disturb the reasonable comfort or repose of any human. So that would cover the cow, and then the rooster, we're going to change the time frame and it would cover that too. So to me that seems pretty clear. It's like making noise outside of these hours or long sustained noise. I think the only thing that's unclear is what is that noise level, right? That, again, maybe if we do the research on the concert venues, we could set a limit or a threshold.
Yeah.
But I mean, to your point, it needs to be clear because otherwise, if it goes to court, somebody can just say like, well, it wasn't. I didn't think it was unreasonable, right? If there's a standard, then we can point to that. But does that make sense to everyone?
I mean, it certainly makes sense, and I like, again, I like having a standard, and it has to be crystal clear, because when I go to court, and I present a speeding citation when someone's doing 10 over the speed limit, the speed limit is 35, and they're doing 45. Are they violating the law? Sure they are. If they're doing 36 and a 35, are they violating the law? Sure they are. It's just going to be a matter of how it's presented, the venue, the person
Yep.
that's presenting the case, and so
Does a
Sure.
non-criminal disposition go to court?
if they wanted to go to court,
Could.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
It's after you,
there's
after
a
you do a hearing
specific
first, it'll be a hearings officer.
person that the
Goes
town
right to-
has
goes
to
to-
buy into. It's through the Northampton
Okay, so
system.
so it could go
Yes,
to
it's
court?
all set up.
Okay,
yeah.
I just wondered.
But frequency, not frequency of the pitch, but frequency of event, you know, even with the large venues, if we're permitting a place for a large concert, you know, I think if people in the community realize that it's only 5 times a year or 6 times a year, it's not every week. I mean, it's the same thing, you know, I think the Asparagus Festival is a great thing for this town, but if we blocked up every weekend, the commons with, you know, drive around here, slow down, you know, with all that, it would become a burden on the town and the people who live near it. So, you know, maybe there's a way for us to put a limit in terms of how many times you can do these things for those, you know, there's only so many permits
Right.
available, just like we have so many, you know, permits for selling alcohol. Okay, the town will allow, you know, 6 major venues a year on the common. You know, the Hadley Club, you know, can only do so many, you know, a year, large ones, other than the weddings,
They have that.
something like that. Can you do
The
that?
club, I think they have a limitation on how many large events they can
Right.
have, 3 or
Yeah,
4.
so I think that's part of, and I don't know that it already exists, you know, and that's great, but I think people need to know that also, so that they know, well, okay, we'll put up with it this weekend, and, you know.
That is it, I like that idea. We have, under fire regulation, you're allowed to have 1 ceremonial bonfire, and it's up to the select board to decide with the fire chief who's gonna get that.
Yeah,
So we used to give it to the snowmobile club, that's the one town's bonfire for the year.
So
I'd say-
for the town one bonfire or for me?
No, it can be a nonprofit or something like that, it can't be for
So I
like
can
a
have one
residence.
bonfire a year?
It has to be approved by the fire chief and the select board, and
Oh.
it's not intended for a
Otherwise,
residence,
you can go up to Hatfield, they have a bonfire over
yes,
there.
that's their one.
Yeah,
I have to leave, folks.
So I agree, I think we should just set a limit on how many there are.
yeah. It'd be easier, would it be easier to, at least it would define it, and it would also keep it to
Yeah.
a certain number that would be considered tolerable, you know, and at the same time, prevent us from having to go through trying to come up with a standard that's very hard to enforce, other than
Oh,
people
okay, so
being
you're
used to it.
saying not to have a
I
standard,
think
just
you
to
need
have
one,
a.
I think you need one anyway, but I think that the
Okay.
permits for certain locations
Sure.
need to be based on,
Well, would
Yeah.
that be a bylaw, or would that, I don't really understand how that works on your guys' end, like, is that something that,
The noise, definition of the noise could be a bylaw.
right,
But the limit on the number of concerts would be a select board regulation.
Okay.
right, okay,
Which they already have a bunch of regulations
Okay,
for
so
large venues.
we don't need to
Yeah.
handle that then,
okay.
good to know.
Kayla, were you exceeding your time too?
Yeah, I gotta go in 10 minutes.
Oh, okay,
Right.
perfect, just wanna make sure.
Okay, yeah, I mean, rather than getting into, cause, what you call it, Randy's left, Jess isn't here, they got a bunch of various assignments, so we'll put off reviewing the list that we had for last meeting for the next meeting. That's June. We weren't gonna have a meeting in July or August. Everybody okay with that, or do you wanna have one? I
Could we
think we should,
just keep it open if needed?
yeah. So the next meeting would then be in September.
Are we,
So-
just,
Go ahead.
we're skipping, Riverfront and Town Common?
I don't know, we just haven't got to.
Oh, okay.
we just
Oh,
haven't
see,
got
we're
to-
circling
yeah,
back.
I just wanna get, cause Kayla's gotta leave, so
I
I don't
gotcha.
wanna.
Could I ask one thing, because
Sure.
just before Kayla leaves, I had a
No, go ahead.
conversation with her under
Yeah.
items unforeseen. So, I was gonna ask all of you, I had asked Kayla if she was willing. Tim, you were on it before, we would need a building commissioner, but, our hazard mitigation update is due. And, we received a grant from Pioneer Valley Planning, we're working on the contracts right now. But normally that is a specific group, so for the last one we did in 2016, it was myself, Chief Mason, David Nixon, Jim Field, Mike Lamosky, Pat Ossip, and Tim Nyhart. We did not have a conservation person at the time, which I think is critical for this, and I think planning board needs to be on it as well. I was gonna make the recommendation of a committee to the select board to see if we could just utilize folks on this committee to do this review, if you guys are willing. And I can send you the last mitigation update that we did, so you can get eyes on what it is. But this is pretty critical for some of our hazard mitigation grant funding that we would open
Didn't even know you
ourselves to.
applied for it, that's nice, that's good.
So,
Who's your Pioneer Valley Planning Commission connection? There's 3.
it's, what's her name? It's not Kathy Rattay anymore. I can't remember the name of this, but, she's working on the contract for us right now.
Okay.
So is anybody willing to
I'd
step
certainly,
on that?
I can certainly step in, help out.
Are you willing, or did you want me to ask, Bill? We really need somebody from
Yeah,
planning, I
that's
think.
fine, I'll be on it.
Okay,
I'm happy to be of assistance.
okay. All right.
I would assume you're chairperson or something like that?
We can discuss that usually, just because I'm the emergency management director, so I have to, this goes through FEMA and everything, but,
Great.
it's
Do we
gonna.
need to vote on that?
Basically, we
members?
do, there's 5 meetings, that we sit down, discuss this. We have a lot of the stuff done, so it's going through to update what our goals and objectives are.
Yeah,
And then it's-
we don't need to vote on it because it's a volunteer thing, just,
Oh, okay.
just the members here are convenient.
We actually put it together to bring to the select board. It then goes to FEMA to be approved, and
Yeah, I remember
so the
all that,
select board
yeah.
will have to sign off on it.
Okay.
What is your timeline for it?
We have to have it completed by May of 2026. So, I don't think it'll be a problem. They're still comfortable with it. If we need to do an extension on it, we
You're
can
gonna
as
have,
well.
you've got almost a year, you're gonna have 5 or 6 meetings, so that's like one every couple of months, so.
And it goes pretty quick, like I said, we're
Yeah.
gonna be reviewing. We have specific items like flooding and wildfires, things like that, so we kinda know what our main hazards are, so. And if you're interested, I mean, the more the merrier, so.
Yeah, I can do that probably.
I know you're busy, so.
Trying not to be,
Yeah,
that's the
I
problem.
know.
No, that's good, that's fine.
Yeah, I would do that if you need me.
While we're on it, because we're gonna be getting close to fall town meeting, do we see anything that we want to get onto the special fall town meeting? Probably in late October, early November, I'm guessing. I don't see anything right now. I think for the May town meeting next year, we're gonna try to get all of these corrected, because we'd like to be done with this committee after the annual town meeting. So I think between now, rather than trying to, my 2 cents is, rather than trying to get something on a special fall town meeting, unless we see something really pressing, a symbol for the annual town meeting, a list of corrections, for lack of a term, and put it on that meeting and be done with it.
Especially since we're not meeting July and August. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's the other,
give
could
us
be
one
pushing,
meeting.
could be pushing to
Yeah.
September. I mean, if we have something pressing that we wanna
Yeah.
do, we could get it. But I don't think we really have anything the few things that we had that we wanted to accomplish already, I think we've got them. I was kinda surprised that I mean, Constable thing passed, but I was surprised by only
By
2
2.
votes. I think what it
Really?
was
By 2 votes?
is that a lot of people didn't understand what they were
Means
voting
that they're
on,
now
even though I tried to get as
appointed.
much publicity out there as possible.
I thought the wording of it, having voted on it, I was like, this is a little unclear, and I know what I'm voting on, so like, if
Yeah.
you don't know what this is, it's gonna be very
And-
confusing.
And that was wording by town council, that was not my
Yeah.
wording.
I'm not pointing fingers, I'm saying
Yeah.
if you walked in there uninformed,
I was shocked.
Well, I think what also was confusing, you were voting to make them appointed, but you're also voting for them.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's like,
Sorry.
that in itself was confusing for those of us that knew why. That's in case the thing failed, you would have 2 constables
Yes.
elected. But I think a lot of people were confused on what they were voting on. I agree with you, Adam, that they didn't know, you know.
One thing before I go is that it seems like in regards to the solid waste bylaw, the recycling coordinator has some ideas on what she wants to see in the updated recycling bylaw.
Okay,
And I spoke to Board of Health, he said he just wants to review it before we put anything out there. So I might invite her to our next meeting.
that's fine.
That's
Okay,
great.
Yep.
And the other thing, we're not trying to bring anything to a fall town meeting, is I think the budget's gonna be
Oh,
a big.
that's gonna be a special before it.
Special.
They wanna put that one, supposedly, they haven't set a date yet, but I understand they wanna put that one in September
Separately, right?
with the
Good.
DPW, and a fall regular special town meeting, let's say in November, will just be the regular stuff.
Unless,
Um,
unless it
But
doesn't
people may
pass.
be reeling, because you're gonna have, let's assume one or both of the things pass for the special override. The vote is going to be right before the special fall town meeting, simply by timing. And I think people are gonna be reeling, and a special town meeting might be interesting in both cases, so.
Yeah, for
Best,
sure.
best to, let's go away with the spring, where it's just gonna be normal stuff. I mean, I don't see we're gonna be putting anything controversial on the annual town meeting. I don't see anything here that's really controversial. It's like correcting wording, you got a bunch of words like, you know, you're handicapping, it calls them an invalid or something like that. I mean, some of the wording is inappropriate in today's mean, but when you look at it, when it was written in, what, 1913 or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Right, it needs updating.
Right.
so,
Someone's gonna look back at our corrections and go, I
Yep.
can't believe they said that.
yeah, you know, who's the idiots exactly, but then things change, okay.
Yeah.
Rather than continue, on, I just,
Motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Yeah.
adjourn.
43.
That
You
was
second.
quick.
Oh, I'll
So,
second.
were you making it?
I was making it
This is
too.
trying traditional.
That's
motion.
okay. Second.
Thank you.
Third.